Hi, I'm Mike Morales. You're watching Sipping Off the Cuff on TequilaAficionado.com, part of Tequila Aficionado Media. I am here in San Antonio. That gentleman out there is
Rick Levy in San Diego.
Rick. This is a very special evening for us because we have tasted just about every agave spirit that there is, except lately there have been some small batch mezcal distillers who, for one reason or another, probably because of an agave shortage, a shortage of espadin or whatever the case may be, that these folks are beginning to distill whiskey. And the folks at
They're
Scorpion,
they're putting their corn to work.
yes, the people at Scorpion have a brand new line. This is really neat. It's kind of they brought it out not only because, of course, to fight a couple of things. Number one, the need to have to go look for another job, probably, and waiting around. You have to wait 4, 5, 6 to 8 years for your agave to grow. If you've been watching us lately, you know that the Douglas French, who is the master distiller of Scorpion, is a small batch distiller and a small farmer. He is growing plots of his own espadin as well as other varietals. And, when you're sitting around waiting for that stuff to grow, you can't hurry it up. So what does he do? He's distilling whiskey. And he asked us if we wanted to try it, and I said, "Well, sure. This will give us a
Of
chance.
course.
Of course, this will give us a chance to use the Glencairns for what they're really for, right?"
Exactly. Another interesting aspect of this, though, that we got in the material that he sent us
Hmm.
is that, we know from his mezcals that something that's very important to him is, preserving the seeds and cultivating the plants.
Right.
And these are heirloom corn varieties
Yeah.
native to Oaxaca. And it seems that something they're trying to do is, they're trying to save these species
Mhm.
while, providing work for the farmers who grow it.
Well, the other neat thing about they call them heirloom corn. These varietals come in yellow corn, white corn, and black corn. I don't know if you knew this, Rick, but I did a little research on just corn in general. And did you know that Oaxaca is the cradle of maize?
Really?
Yes,
Did not know that.
it is and that apparently there's a historical legacy that for distilling whiskey in Mexico and Oaxaca in particular. So this is it's kind of a throwback, a historical kind of thing. It's a heritage that has existed for a long time. So Douglas French, in his wisdom, said, "Hey, let's give it a shot. I've got all the equipment here. We've got all kinds of corn. Let's give it a try." So tonight, you're looking at the first varietal, the first what do you even call these? The first expressions of Sierra del Norte, and this is the yellow corn. So we're going to try this now. I guess, Rick, we should probably read how exactly this blends in what he's doing. According to the information we have, this is 85. All the expressions are 85% heritage corn, 15% malted barley, and they're approximately aged about 9 months in French oak barrels. So right then and there, we were talking off camera how American whiskey or bourbon whiskey, you use virgin American oak, and only one time, and so these are in French oak, obviously used barrels. I would imagine. I could be wrong, but it doesn't. The information doesn't say so. So I will go with the used French oak barrel. So we're going to have all kinds of different flavor profiles with all three of these. And I'm kind of excited. I want to give this a shot and see. You know, those of us who have a little Jack Daniels in the house, or a little Bullet Bourbon, or you know, Heaven Hill. Heaven Hill makes, in fact, Heaven Hill makes their own. Of course, they're a whiskey distiller, but they have their own tequila, and they age one of their tequilas in rye barrels. And I have a bottle up in the shelf that I've not been able to get a second sample. So maybe after this, I can talk to them and say, hey, guess what? We want to give it a shot. So we're gonna use the Glencairns for what they're for tonight. And this is a rich, beautiful color, very similar to the kind of the Scorpion Mezcal colors. Kind of a nice golden amber. And this is the yellow corn. The way you can tell is these are all dipped in wax. Word of caution: when you cut through these, be careful. There's really there's no ribbon to open these up with. You're going to have to use a knife or an X-Acto knife or something, because it's pretty thick. So let's give this a try. What are we getting?
Whiskey.
Wow, what is that? You know, having done so many mezcals and tequilas and other agave spirits, when it comes to whiskey, I have very few bars to compare this to. You know, except whatever's commercially available. I will say that I do lean toward Canadian blended whiskey. I think it's a little bit lighter. It's not as you know, in your face as some of the Jack Daniels or other the more, you know, commercially available, Jim Beam for that matter.
Yeah, I'm more of a Kentucky bourbon guy.
Are you? I can definitely smell the French oak on this one.
Yeah, that's really coming through. Now, in their notes, for the nose, they say toasted corn, buttery popcorn with a hint of caramel.
Let's see, what do we got here? These are all, I think we should mention, they're all 45 ABV, alcohol by volume. So they're a little bit higher proof than maybe what we're used to as well. He's got, you know, this is really an interesting combination of techniques that he's using to really come up with his own flavor profile, his own particular line of whiskey that's really difficult to pinpoint.
Yeah, I'm wondering how much you can really compare this to, you know, to what we would typically find.
It doesn't smell like anything that I've had in the past. I will say that the nose is more reminiscent to me of his mezcals because of the French oak, or even anything else that we have that we've tasted or sampled that's aged in French oak.
Yeah, I think you know, the dominant notes I'm getting here are from the French oak. And you know, I guess I could probably see like the buttery caramel popcorn in there a little bit.
There's a significant amount of a noticeable amount of alcohol as well.
Yeah.
And you know, when you have bottles that are sealed tightly in wax, there's not a whole lot of evaporation either. So it's a pleasant nose. It really is not offensive at all. It's very reminiscent of Scorpion mezcals, like the 5-year that we tried. You know, anything that's aged, it's kind of an extra añejo. Wow.
pouring it into a whole bunch of different glasses here to see if I'm getting different notes.
You have that malt glass though, don't you? Don't you have that
Yeah,
malt glass? Have you tried it in that
yeah. I
one
got
yet?
the malt glass here. I just poured it, so it hasn't really filled the volume yet.
I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna give this a try here. Mm.
Hmm.
Wow. Oh my. There's no there. You know, I'm so used to looking for an agave punch, but this is really different. This really has
Yeah.
a gentle. It goes in gently in on the palate, and then it gives you that short to medium finish. It's
Yeah, the corn is really coming through as well.
wow. This is really something. It's subtle, folks. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to lie to you. Even though there's enough alcohol in here to, you'll smell it. Um, the 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 flavor profile to me, comparatively to mezcals or even some tequilas, is, for lack of a better term, smooth. And I don't like using that descriptor, but in this case, it really does measure up.
Yeah, but I think he's really showcasing the yellow corn here. I think the corn flavor is really coming through.
The retronasal, the corn flavor on the retronasal really is pronounced, and I agree. It is a buttery popcorn, just a hint of caramel. It says mellow grilled pineapple. I get some spice, not necessarily chili spice, but I do get the allspice, the honey, the stuff that's in the barrel, that's in the French oak barrel. Um,
Yeah, I agree.
it's I'm so used to the complexity that it's weird for me to, I'm expecting more, and I shouldn't be. I really shouldn't be, because this has to stand on its own. I'm trying to compare it to the whiskeys or the mezcals that I've had before. It is really unlike anything that I've had as far as whiskeys go.
Yeah, I agree.
Um,
And this really seems to be showcasing the corn. It favors the corn over the barrel.
I think so,
Where
but they're balanced. It's not, this is tough to do with French
Yeah,
oak.
yeah. I just with my whiskeys and bourbons, I'm just not used to having the corn itself so pronounced.
Hmm.
It's usually muddled in with the barrel flavors, but you can really pick it out here.
Well, and
So
again,
it's an interesting concept.
yeah, I think Doug French is onto something, because again, new barrels versus used barrels, American white oak versus French oak. Um, in American whiskey or bourbon or Tennessee whiskey or bourbon, you don't get it's made from corn, but you don't ever taste it. You know,
Yeah,
the
you get the sweetness from the corn, but you don't get a whole lot of corn flavor. You're getting the barrel flavor.
yeah, exactly. You get a lot of barrel flavor, a lot of char. You know, it's corn liquor. So it obviously lends itself very well, very nicely to aging, and and it acquires a lot of the characteristics from the barrel. But I like this. I like that I can taste the corn.
Yeah.
Does that make us children of the corn? Wow! And now that you get deeper in, you got to walk a fine line with the French oak, and I think you'll agree with me, Rick. French oak, if it's done wrong, completely overpowers whatever spirit in our case, it's tequila, but
Yeah.
whatever spirit that it's resting in, you run that risk of the barrel overpowering the booze. In this case, I'm really pleasantly surprised that I can smell and taste the corn. Who
Yeah,
knew?
it's a really balanced approach.
It's really kind of cool if you're not much into whiskeys and you know that they're made from corn, but you don't ever really taste it. This might be a really good again, it might be a great gateway to whiskeys. Who knows? I'm really enjoying this. I'm really getting the hang of this now because it's thank God we
Well,
have
I
the Glen
think
Cairns.
I think whiskey aficionados would really find this um, interesting as kind of an exotic take from what they may typically be exposed to.
Those who are whiskey and maybe even Scotch connoisseurs might or bourbon might feel that this is a bit on the lighter side, maybe a bit more on the sweeter side. I think the last bourbon I had was J.R. Ewing bourbon, believe it or not, and that was it's really
You are in
hearty.
Texas.
Yeah, well, they were actually at Tales of the Cocktail 1 year or 2 years ago, and they were sampling it on one of the floors, and I've always wanted to try it because it was made with J.R. Ewing's blessing, may he rest in peace, and it's much more it's much more powerful and flavorful. Of course, it's apples and oranges. I really
Yeah.
I like this, Rick. What do you think? Do you think it's a do you, who would like this? Among your peers that do bourbon or do whiskey.
Yeah, I think if you wanted to make like a sort of a light-handed old fashioned, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Um, maybe not mixing in as much of the ingredients as you normally would, but toning it down a little so that you can really let the spirit speak here. It might be a really interesting take on it. That would be my suggestion.
Okay.
I have friends that are into Manhattans, but I'm not sure if I'd want to go the Manhattan route with this one. Because I think adding in the sweet vermouth and the bitters would sort of muddle up the interesting flavors that are being presented here.
So at least the yellow corn version would, I guess we would consider this one a sipping whiskey, as opposed to something we would try to risk putting it in a cocktail. Would we ice it down? Would you put a cube of ice in it? Do you think it would make any difference?
Uh, it would probably, well, from our experience in tequilas and mezcals, you add ice and it kind of, smooths everything out.
Mm-hmm.
When you're having it at room temperature, you're able to get a lot more of the aromas and flavors. So, I've become kind of a purist. I just like to try everything neat at room temperature to really try to, get a sense of what it has to say.
Sure, especially this being our first foray into Oaxacan whiskey.
Yeah.
Boy, say that 5 times real fast.
And I'm nowhere near a whiskey expert either. So,
No,
I come from a different school.
yeah, and I would say, some of my oakhead friends and whiskey, people may think that it's a little on the lighter side. I've had rums, for instance. I probably, understand rum more than I do whiskey because my folks are Central American. So in the house, we always had like flor de caña, and the more aged rum you got, the heartier the flavor. But then again, those are aged in different barrels. It's a whole different, and it's a whole different spirit. So when it comes to whiskeys, I think my friends would think that this is a kind of on the lighter side, but
And lighter in terms of the barrel.
right, right. But the flavor profile is there, and if you spend time with it, it really does speak to you. So I think this would be like, even though it's at 45 ABV, I think it'd be a great like introduction to whiskeys in general. What, maybe I'd use it as a gateway whiskey for anybody who wanted to experiment into something, work their way into something like Four Roses or bourbons and things like that. Or if they wanted to know a little bit more about the corn itself. I love that I can taste the corn. It's I can sense it. It's there, and that's a tightrope. That's a tough one to walk.
And especially since they're featuring the different species of corn as well, I think it's really great that they took a lighter touch on the barrel.
I think so too. I think so too. What do you think? Should this be a heritage brand of promise?
A new category?
Yeah, a new category. Well, I mean, he's not the only one. You see what I mean? There are other mezcal producers, small batch producers, who are doing this kind of thing out of necessity because there's just not enough agave to go around. With the major producers taking the bulk of the agave, the small farmers like Doug French who are sitting around waiting for their stuff to grow, and if he's trying to buy, he's competing with deeper pockets, companies like Zignum, which is what, Bacardi, and so there's more and more of these coming out from mezcal distillers who are taking the bull by the horns and going, you know what? I'm a distiller. I'm going to make this work.
Yeah.
And I like it. I like it. If you're not a big whiskey guy or a bourbon guy, you can't handle the dryness, try this. I'm kind of anxious to try the other two varietals and see what we're getting from those. What kind of corn are we going to get from those? What do you think? Do you think we should give it its own category?
I think these small artisanal distillers should be recognized, and I think this is great.
There you go. Then we shall place this in a new category. This is our first one that's been submitted to us from a mezcal distiller. I know that there are other ones out there. If you happen to be watching and you make
it's only March, so there's plenty of time.
There's plenty of time. Go right ahead, but I think in the especially using the heirloom corn, I think the whiskey heritage or heritage legacy category for whiskeys, I think is a valid choice. Stay with us because we're going to be trying the white corn and the black corn, and I'm really anxious to see what the differences are going to be. But in the meantime, I'm Mike Morales here in San Antonio.
Rick Levy in San Diego.
You've been watching Sipping Off the Cuff, a special edition for Sierra del Norte whiskeys. And like we like to say here, first of all, watch our YouTube channel, subscribe, and as always,